Good afternoon. We welcome you to this panel discussion on customer experience management. This panel discussion is going to be moderated by Shupriyo Sen, who is the EVP and General Manager in OSG. The panel participants are Dr. Sukumar, President and CEO of OSG, S.V. Rangan, CEO of IFG Consulting, Frank Gencarelli, Industry Leader, Life and Retirement, and Terry Fiedler, EVP in AIG Financial Distributors. If you have any questions for the panel, please send it to us using the chat feature on your control panel. Let me turn it over to Shupriyo Sen. Shupriyo?
Thank you, Geeta, and thank you everyone who's participating in this panel discussion. This is a very interesting topic at a very, very interesting time. I am Shupriyo Sen. I am the EVP and General Manager for the Financial Services Practice at Optimal Strategics Group. Customer experience management. A lot of companies in financial services are focused on customer experience as leaders in companies realize that companies that do focus on being obsessed about customer and delivering the best experience possible generate multiple times in value compared to companies that do not. So today we have an esteemed list of participants, and we want to really dive into the topic of customer experience management. Specifically, I want to talk about 4 key things. One is customer centricity. What does that even mean, and how do companies get steeped into a total customer-centric model? Next, I would like to be able to talk about disruptive innovation. There's a lot of technology innovation that is happening with fintech, insurtech, and how does that relate to customer experience management? I want to move on then to talk about value measurement and KPIs. So we understand metrics like customer satisfaction. We understand measurements like NPS. But companies are really looking to create and generate value. So how does value and some of these KPIs connect, and what does that even mean? Finally, I want to talk about change management, because as companies go through this entire customer experience management journey, different companies are in different stages of their evolution, and leaders are now increasingly aware that this is something that cannot be left on their own. So they're proactively beginning to take charge and leading change management within their organization to create a truly customer-focused organization. So that's the broad roadmap that we want to be able to cover today, and I'm very happy that you're all here and listening in. So I want to direct our first question to Dr. Sukumar, who is the President and CEO of OSG. Sukumar, at OSG, we always say we are very focused, we're heavily focused on customer centricity, to the point where we basically we have made it a mission statement. So if you will, in your own words, state the mission statement of OSG, and then give us a sense for what do you really mean by customer centricity?
Very good. Well, thank you, Shupriyo. Thank you for that question. Look, I think I'm going to go back in history a little bit. For those who are listening in, some of this might be ones that you may or may not have read or heard about. So Peter Drucker was the first one who said the purpose of a business is to create a customer. And then many decades later, another Peter Fader now, from the Wharton School, in his book titled Customer Centricity, gave us a true definition of what is customer centricity. And I'll use that as a jumping point to define what OSG's position is on this whole subject. So he defined customer centricity as a strategy that aligns a company's development or delivery of its products or services around the current and future needs. We highlight the words current and future needs of a select set of customers in order to maximize their long-term financial value to the firm. So underlying these are some key words: current and future needs, and also the reflection that it was not about all customers. It was on the select set of customers where you could maximize long-term financial value to the firm. The second part of his definition says that in embodying this particular customer-centric value system, it requires a company to be willing and able to change its organizational design, its performance metrics, and employee or distributor incentive structures to focus on this longer run value creation or delivery process. So this customer centricity definition has evolved from being customer intimate to customer focus to customer orientation, and now to more of a 360-degree definition of customer centricity. So that brings me to the whole idea of, what is OSG's value proposition and what our mission is. And we've always said that we are a catalyst for customer-centric growth. And once again, I've already defined what customer-centric is. The emphasis on growth, both top line and bottom line, is very critical. But as a catalyst, one of the most important things that we bring is a good understanding of what drives the behaviors of these customers, both in the, what has driven them in the past to make the choices they made, and what will drive them in the future to better engage with your firm, with your company. And in the process, if you have a great understanding of that, you can build and design customer experiences that are going to be very rewarding for your firm. Now, the topic today is about customer experience. I just want to say one sentence and turn it back to you, Shupriyo, is that we know that from a recent survey that Forrester completed, 89% of all marketing leaders are expecting to compete primarily on the whole idea of customer experience. 73% of CEOs believe that customer centricity is critical to the success of their business, and it is therefore the core of what defines a better customer experience. And the results of the Forrester Customer Index 2016 show that customer centricity leaders have seen a 43% growth in overall performance. Phenomenal. I mean, if you think about it. But how do you go through this process, and how do you actually drive that and continue to drive that is sort of the key to our discussion today. So I hope that introductory comment made sense, and I want to turn it back to you.
Great, thank you, Sukumar. So there is certainly a lot of literature, and there is certainly a lot of evidence that customer centricity pays off. In the context of financial services, now I want to turn to our leaders on the panel here, and maybe I'll start with Frank. So Frank, I mean, you've been a veteran in the life and retirement industry for 30 plus years, right? From that vantage point, from insurance and from retirement life, if you will, why is customer management, customer experience management important today?
Well, it's important, I think, because margins have been pretty much driven by a lot of product-centric strategies, and it's almost as if we as an industry, and a broad industry, focus on a product type or a specific need of a consumer customer or distributor customer, rather than looking at the whole relationship. And I think that if you actually take a customer-centric view, you might actually make decisions that would exclude some of the relationships that you have and include others that you might have ignored. I think that the tenor of the financial services industry, as I've experienced, has been, okay, we're going to bring in big data. We're going to bring in, kind of a lot of analytics that will drive your decision for a particular transaction as a provider without really kind of looking at the entire potential and the entire span of the relationship. So I'm a simple guy, and I say, I think that we've done a lot of work, especially in the insurance industry, towards understanding how we can categorize people who have raised their hand and said they want to buy. We have not really done a whole lot of really good work around propensity to buy, propensity to stay with a relationship, and what's needed to nurture that relationship over the long haul for a net present value that is advantageous to everyone.
Great, thank you, Frank. So you raise a very important and interesting point, right? It's propensity and the focus in terms of nurturing relationships. So in financial services, the word customer can be a little nebulous and sometimes can be answered differently depending on who you're talking to. So I'm going to turn my attention to Terry. And Terry, she heads strategic accounts and relationships at AIG Financial Distributors. So in financial services where the intermediary is the touch point with the primary carrier, oftentimes the intermediary, the broker-dealer, the broker, the RIA, whatever the case may be, is oftentimes defined as the customer. So from that vantage point, Terry, why would you say customer experience management is important when we are dealing with the intermediary as the customer?
Yeah, thank you, Cipro. And that's actually a really good question, because you're right. The customer can mean different things, and in my world, I most often, if not always, work with the intermediary as opposed to the end customer. But I kind of, it reminds me when you were asking that question, I thought about it, and back to when I started at AIM Investments, which was an asset management firm in Houston that's now, through a series of acquisitions, is Invesco today. But I remember being in a room and we were coming out with a new product, and this is back, in the days when there were only A shares. There weren't even B shares and C shares, et cetera, on mutual funds. And we were debating on doing B shares. And I remember being in the room and everybody was saying, well, this is good for the broker. This is obviously good for AIM in terms of the economics of the share class. And the debate, the conversation probably went on for, I don't know, 40 minutes or something. And Ted Bauer, who was CEO of AIM, stepped in. He goes, I've sat here and I've listened to this conversation for 40 minutes, and no one said how this is good for the shareholder, for the end client. And that always stuck with me, because it's so easy sometimes to get focused on the intermediary and thinking this is good for the broker, this is good for the financial advisor, the broker-dealer, or even, in this case, I work at AIG for AIG. But we can't forget that we're developing products for the end consumer. And I would say that the customer is becoming more demanding. And so, yes, the intermediary is very important, and we certainly distribute and market and sell to them. But we're also, I think that the industry is also now taking more than ever into account the end consumer, the actual shareholder or the contract holder of our products. And obviously the business is more competitive as well. And I'm not telling anything to anybody here on the call that you don't already know, but resources are very limited. So to have a customer centricity program, we try to focus on the right things, which is measuring the customer experience. In this case, I'm talking about working through the intermediary, the agent, or the financial advisor that works with us. Understanding the customer, understanding and creating the customer journey, where are the pain points, where are the joy points, and deciding and choosing the right projects that will have the biggest customer impact.
Great. Thank you, Terry. You reminded me of something that I've noticed, especially in the last 1.5 years, being a part of AIG, is in terms of customer experience management, there is a difference in approach sometimes between the various sub-verticals within financial services. So you mentioned, Invesco and AIM funds, the asset management and the wealth management, firms seem to me, and I apologize in advance if I'm offending here, but that's not the intent. The intent really here is to have a robust discussion. But it seems like the asset managers and the wealth managers are ahead of the curve in terms of embracing digital and various digital solutions and technology, including those for customer experience management. So I'm going to turn to SV Rangan now. And SV, if you will, what disruptive innovations do you see in the marketplace today, be it in banking or asset management or even in insurance, that you feel is focused on customer experience management?
I think, let me just start first with saying that, I fully agree with Terry. I always have been advocating to anyone and everyone, even though there are intermediaries, that at the end of the day, there is only one customer, and that is the end customer. Everyone else, is a pass-through. You have to find ways out. When it comes to innovation, I would say, as far as the insurance industry, so far has been very much what I would call as been focused on sustained innovation. And what I mean by that is sustained innovation is you actually test the boundaries. better risk management, better this, something in distribution, but you just test the boundaries. So the whole thing about disruptive innovation or empowered innovation is actually being driven by the fintech industry, and they are focused on improving the insurance customer experience in a significant way. And if you look at it in terms of the way the insurtech industry is, what they identified was an opportunity that the industry by itself is very slow moving, and hence disruption is much more easier. So there were, I would just sort of look at 4 things that are there. Number 1 is products for the shared economy. That's one of the things, the pay-per-use sort of things which are coming in. Second is Internet of Things. It is actually becoming bigger and bigger as far as the industry is concerned, in order to actually reduce some of the pain points that are there. Then even things which you may think is out of place right now, it's far ahead, but it is in terms of the commercial or other insurance, drones, augmented reality is coming in for quicker claim settlement. And then of course the insurtechs are also moving towards safer and healthy behavior based on personal information that people are gathering on shared apps and all, and see how we can be proactive with some of the management. So just to take, I'll just give you a couple of examples which are very interesting. One is when you look at pay as you drive, the entire auto insurance industries for policies were based on how do you reduce cost and insurer risks. Traditionally they looked at age and the history. The disruption that you have now that is coming in is the distance you drive and how you drive can reduce premiums. And there is an app which is there, it's called Zuby, I'm sure you heard of it, which actually works, and they are working with Progressive. And what they do is they connect the car to the internet to deliver real-time location, trip history, maintenance alerts, diagnostics, and driving insights. Again, that actually feeds into the premiums and the pricing, and so they can actually do pay-as-you-drive insurance, or they can do a couple of other, what I would call a short-term insurance. And this is what I call, when I talked about disruptive or empowering insurances, now you've actually moved and you're creating market. Then of course Sensio is known telematics, which is there. Then if you look at digital, the digital insurance managers are there. They help you manage all your policies. So there are 2. One is FunctionFox and one is NIP. Both of them are actually providing aggregators for all of insurance. So this is really the first step. Then obviously they would move to the pricing. And third, I'll give another example, and these are all, I'm sure some of you might have heard of it, but these are all actually some of the emerging examples that are coming, is video-enabled doorbells to discharge, to discourage burglars and that way they lower home insurance premiums. So you can almost get you can get 5 to 10% premium reduction if you install some of these. And of course, one of them, if you look at Vivint is one where homeowners are alerted when windows are broken. Liberty Mutual actually gives discount to people who have got Vivint. So if you think of these sort of things which are there, or Metro Mile, which is a paper mile car insurance, these are things you would never have thought that could have been there in this industry, and they're sort of rewriting. They're all very small right now, but I guess when you get to a stage where your product has become commoditized, then how do you actually get to build that competitive advantage? And this is a way, in the sense that you improve customer experience, but not by known tools, but by actually getting some of these technology-driven tools which are there and which can actually put your company far ahead. At least it gives you that. I think the next 10 years there'll be a play out here before there is parity, and then there is another set of innovation that comes in.
Great. Thank you, SV. Listening to you, it's amazing, right? The variety and the velocity of the different data types and data sources, in addition to the traditional data sources that most people have always relied on in the past. So Kumar, I mean, as we talk to so many of our clients, we have seen that the data journey itself is so varied from firm to firm. Data can be such a huge issue. From your vantage point, type of data do you think might be needed for customer experience management?
Well, yeah, I very much like the question you ask, and I think I want to go back to the definition that was put out earlier on when I talked about what is customer centricity, and bring it back to what some of the things that Rangan just talked about. There is for some reason inside most corporations a little bit of fear about the data that they have. So they have a lot of data, and a lot of that data happens to be very historical in nature in terms of the customers that have already bought from them or interacted with them, and very transactional in nature. And this is great. The information is residing in various kinds of software databases, some in CRM tools, some in enterprise ERP systems, and others in customer contact management databases that may be utilized by call centers and various other direct marketing agencies. Now, there's also a different kind of big data platform, which is a continuous streaming that is happening of where our current customers are looking for information, what kind of information, what do they say about us in social media, and how have they transacted with us at any given point in time. All this is great information, but what is very much an additional component that I would encourage most companies to think about is a very forward-looking understanding of what would help you change customer behavior. How would you be in a position to look at and understand the true drivers of customer expectations, and what can you do to address those in new and improved ways of customer experiences, creating that disruptive innovation that you and the panel just talked about as such. That requires something very different. That requires actually bringing forth into all the volume and velocity and variety of data that you already have, that is, the minute it hits your data warehouse is already historical. That requires you to add on to it a component that is forward-looking to help understand along the customer's journey what jobs are they trying to accomplish, which jobs are not being addressed today, and what needs and benefits can be solved through new products, new solutions, new ways of delivering these solutions. How can we address those to improve the customer experience? So AceMap, which is such a tool that was built out of Stanford University, with the whole idea that it can help you understand how to prioritize what are these behavioral nudges, what are these behavioral benefits are going to be critical for the end customer or even for the distributors. What of these are going to be critical to address in the future, and how can new innovations be brought to place in order to address these? This is going to be very critical. This kind of primary market research that begins to help you understand better customer expectations, their experiences, the evaluation of your brand and the equity that they're willing to help you build around the brand or destroy it, and then through that process, what new innovations you can bring in to improve customer experiences with not only new existing products, but also ideas and suggestions for new products and services. That is a very critical component that will serve as a catalyst to opening up that disruptive innovation space that you just talked about.
Great, thank you, Sukumar. I think it's not new to me, but I think it might be new to our listeners, because there was a new phrase that you put out. It's not just customer experience. I mean, we pitched this as a customer experience management in a panel discussion, and then I heard you introduce a new phrase, which was customer expectations, right? And you basically said customer expectations, understand that, and then you talked about customer experience, and that's intriguing, right? How do you go about measuring customer expectations? Frank, I mean, in the life and retirement world, you know, we all focus on experience, and experience, in my opinion, is an outcome, right? Expectations are a little more tricky. What are your thoughts on measuring expectations? How do you think we should go about doing that?
It's really an important point. We would all like to have some sort of electronic monitor on all of our consumer customers to let us know what their driving habits are, what their lifestyle habits are, what their investment decisions are, this, that, and the other. And that really can, can drive a lot of pricing decisions, and a segmentation based on things that affect pricing. But when what OSG is really about is behavioral economics and actually understanding what drives people to make the decisions they make, above and beyond the things that we can measure from their past history. And so I think that when we talk about customer expectations, whether that's the retail consumer customer or a retail distributor or a wholesale distributor, they, not too many of them will be able to actually tell you what they really expect and want in the future. So I think that it's up to us to really kind of assemble the kind of research, primary research, that can help us understand what will satisfy their needs, what will satisfy their hopes, deliver their hopes, and that sort of thing. And there are a lot of examples of this. There are people that just in the very simple term life insurance world who will just turn a trick. I mean, when you're right down to it, I hate to be tacky here, but just will turn a trick. Let me give you a quote for $1 million rather than at least doing a little work to figure out whether that's really what that person needs. And I think a lot of what we need to do is to do some work around what people need, and that's not driven by their past behavior or their past lifestyle or their past investment decisions or anything like that. That's more about their hopes and dreams.
Great, Frank. I think both you and Sukumar have raised some very important and interesting points here, that it is extremely important to understand customers' hopes, needs, dreams, in other words, expectations. Because if you don't understand what those hopes, needs, dreams, expectations are, you don't even know what to optimize in terms of their experience. So getting to an understanding, a crystal clear understanding of expectations is so very important, because that gives you then the necessary toolkit to say, this is what I prioritize in terms of managing people's experience. Because if I prioritize the wrong thing, then you might have done a really good job as a company, but the customer may not have cared at all. And there's another important point that both you, Sukumar, and Frank, you raised, which is the topic of segmentation, right? If you basically say there are all these hopes, needs, dreams that are out there, if you can probably throw them on the wall, they probably all are true. But they probably are true to varying degrees and to different extents for different segments. So that is a very, very important point, I think, to be able to do any form of customer experience management, is to really understand what the customer segments are and what expectations exist by the various different segments. And then the bigger question then becomes also, which of these segments do you prioritize, right? We'll get to that in just a few minutes. I think we're trying to sort of look at expectations and experience, because at the end of the day, managing experience and improving experience, I think there's a singular goal for all of that. In my opinion, and I think you all would agree, and I would like to hear more about this, is we all want to improve customer experience because we want to engage our customers better. Because engaged customers do more business with you. Engaged customers provide more references and are loyal, and so on and so forth. So, Terry, I mean, once again, going back to the intermediary sort of, world, intermediary-driven world where companies, carriers are working with, brokers and, wealth managers, advisors, and maybe even, direct to end customers. Why do you think engagement is important?
Yeah, it is important, and I just to a point that you had, customers are demanding experience on their own terms now. So whether it's their mobile phones, online chat, talking to Siri or Alexa, as an industry, we haven't evolved as much as the financial services industry, the insurance industry, as much as some other industries out there. And so we can no longer service our customers with just our advisors in the field, or wholesalers as we call them. We have to support all of the technologies that our customers demand. And so we're behind in that area, and we're working towards it. But I want to also touch on a point that was mentioned earlier, just about understanding expectations. And there's a couple of ways to do that. One is when, a financial advisor is working with their client, they can do a risk tolerance profile, and the client may say that their risk is moderate or what have you. But sometimes what they say and what they mean may be different. If a client says they have moderate risk tolerance, but then the market goes down 30%, they don't really have the stomach for that, and there's a little disconnect there. So there's some interesting things that are out there that I know a broker dealer right now that is trying to integrate biometrics, facial expressions, etc., into the risk profile. So it's like, does the biometrics really match up with the words that they're putting down on the paper? So I think we're going to see more and more of those types of disruptors out there with technology that is really kind of marrying the technology, kind of validating what humans are saying. So those are my thoughts on that.
I think that's very funny, Terry. This is Frank. I mean, I think it's very funny that, someone could describe themselves as being moderate risk tolerant, and then, but that doesn't mean 30% to them, even if the market's down 40%, right? But that's a very important point. That's a very important point. My self-description is not necessarily going to map to the reality of at least short-term, if not medium-term experience.
Yeah, human behavior is absolutely an interesting thing, and it's good that we can make a science out of that and try to peer behind the veil to really understand what those needs are, what those drivers for motivation are that move various people to change. So Effie, I want to turn to you now and ask you about something that is so very important to executives. We in consulting, textbooks, pundits can come and stand on a podium and they can talk, at great lengths about the importance of customer experience management and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, for any business leader, it comes down to a program is an investment. It's an investment of resources, of people, time, and obviously dollars, right? So. Sure. How do you measure value through a customer experience management program, and how might you go about quantifying ROI?
Yeah, I think firstly, understanding value is not an easy task. Let me just start with that. And what you need to do, and there are to identify what drives customer satisfaction. And then how do you translate into operational performance, improvements? That requires, number one, obviously, deep customer insight, solid, analytics, which you can do, and most important, modeling the most important customer journeys. And then you have to have some sort of cross-functional ownership and end-to-end management for this. So it's very different because so far, a lot of initially when it started off, it was a lot about let me take a part of the process, do something about it, or looking at different touch points, and let me try to improve them. But that's a sort of myopic way to look at it. You have to actually map the journey, and then you have to figure out, how do I actually maximize the customer experience? Because you might have individual touch points, all of them giving you very satisfactory scores, but still the experience might be poor. And one way, we all now talk, it's become commonplace now, is we talk about the customer lifetime value model. And that's really, clearly links to the, what I would call as it's a direct flow from the customer experience management, because for me, the CEM or customer experience management, what it does, it tries to improve the value a customer represents to the organization over the lifeline of the relationship. And by optimizing each interaction, and creating an engaged customer relationship. That's really the thing. And that's where you differentiate I think earlier it goes into then segmentation models, and from segmentation models, it has to have, you clearly know who's profitable, who's not profitable, and then you can actually build out various programs around there. And most important, actually, it feeds into both the CEO and CFO, because there are clear impacts then on the revenue as well as on the expense side of the equation. And you can clearly show that, how much dollars and cents it's adding or reducing. In a way, that's really the value I can think about. And that's one of the reasons I think it is, briefly someone mentioned, but customer experience management and a better customer experience management actually creates higher shareholder value.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So as I'm listening to you, SV, I mean, you bring about quite a very few important points, but it seems like a big nut to swallow or a big nut to crack, right? Customer lifetime value. I mean, you talked about the customer journey. So do I need to measure customer experience across the entire journey? I mean, this sounds like a massive project to be able to understand customer lifetime value. So that is operative at a portfolio level. But when you talk about the journey, the modeling the journey, I mean, when I think about journey, I think about starting with acquisition, then going through retention, then I think about loyalty programs. Can I piece part this out and focus customer experience management like a laser tool on any aspect of it, or do I have to bring everything into the mix to be able to measure customer lifetime value?
What I would say is that the ideal way is that it's all connected. At the end of the day, some of the basic metrics that drive, they're connected. So the way it will finally move to is where it will be journey vis-a-vis touch points, because you may improve touch points, but if you multiply the touch points, understand one thing, that we are now talking about moving to what I would call as, there are three key factors which you have to remember. One is what the customer wants today, because you are now, every time he buys something from you, you might be in insurance, you might be in banking, but his comparison is Amazon, his comparison is eBay. So it is convenience, transparency, and personalization. And when you talk about that, you might improve touch points, but it really depends, and which is why I talked about, insights and analytics and modeling, because it's personalization part of it. It might be, what might be important to one person may not be that important to the other. And it is a multiplication of those factors which are the weightages that a person ascribes that leads to the final, experience and final measure. I'll give you, I'll give you an interesting example. Take, for example, speed of resolution in claims, It is, what it was found, like, equivalent of doing what Dr. Sukumar talked about, the ACE map exercise initially, if they put aside a whole lot of factors, courtesy, empathy, knowledge, professionalism of the claim handler, and really one of the rankings where they did in small claims for auto was that the actual claim amount paid was ranked 12th, whereas the top was speed of, resolution. So that's what I'm saying. It's different strokes for different folks. And so that is one of the reasons why I think now the movement is more towards looking at the journey as a whole rather than only looking at touch points.
Yeah. I think you articulate a very, very important point. It's basically optimizing and improving the journey as a whole. But to your claims experience, sort of, claims handling example, it seems like the top driver, which was customer experience oriented, is something that when identified, right, can be also improved as a part of the customer journey. So if you want to take this in pieces as a leader, you can begin to focus where the need is the most. Begin there and then slowly build out to integrate every aspect of the journey. So great, thank you very much. That helps a lot. Sukumar, I want to turn to you and then move on to the next thing. I mean, we started talking about leadership and you know, in the shoes of a leader, what some of the thoughts might be going through individuals' head as they begin to, you know, turn their organizations into more customer-centric organizations. Within an organization, oftentimes, even when there is a customer experience function, a customer management function, it is sometimes broken into multiple business units or in different silos. Who should really own CX? Should it be marketing? Should it be operations? Or should it be its own unique office?
Well, you know, customer experience, again, I'll go through history. And in the early days, it used to be called customer intimacy, then customer service, then customer focus, customer orientation. All of these looked at the customer as only addressing one the journey to the point that Rangan may understand that the customer is at the center, and there's many people inside the organization that touch the customer in different ways. Whether it happens to be sales, whether it happens to be a digital experience, trying to search and look for information like what you do on eBay or Amazon, whether it happens to be being in a position to place your order and pick it up at a Whole Foods, which now Amazon happens to own. There's so many different touch points at which the customer experience, if you bought into that idea, then customer experience is not unidimensional. It has to be supported by a cross-functional, multifunctional team inside any organization. But again, whenever you bring in, you know, cross-functional teams, there's got to be a leader. There's got to be a champion. There's got to be two things: not only a person or a personality who can drive that kind of leadership to bring forth all of these different cross-functional teams to do the right thing by the customer, but you also need, you know, I'm going to use the word orb, but what I really mean is something that's a fact-based platform, something that everybody buys into in order to make sure that they all buy and believe in what is customer experience, how are they impacting it, and what does it mean when something is wrong in some aspect of the or some aspect of the support and service. And I think I'm reminded of one of my interactions at a very senior level in a medical device company, where there were complaints thrown by the salespeople where they said that I just sold a knee replacement and what went out was a cardiac stent. How could you send a cardiac stent instead of a knee replacement and hold up a big surgery? Now, just keep in mind that that's just one example of blaming, and it becomes very endemic. And then there was billing issues, and each department was so unique and separated that they never really knew what was happening elsewhere, and they were pointing out to issues. So customer experience requires a leader, an element around which you stand that provides facts, and a truly cross-functional team across distribution, across billing, across fulfillment, you know, purchasing, selling, all of that. And that's going to be very critical to the success of putting together a truly, truly innovative customer experience that you will see tremendous growth beyond some of the numbers that are being talked about.
Great. So the next question that I have is, how as a leader do you really create that organizational culture that is obsessed across business units, business silos, to create, you know, to be really focused on and motivated to improving, you know, customer experience at every touch point? How do you incentivize? How do you motivate the second tier of leadership within a company to actually come about and do this? Frank, I mean, you've led both sales and marketing teams within large life and retirement organizations. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think that there are, characteristics of the companies I've been involved in that may not be universal, and that is that mature businesses where a lot of the marching order is to not lose market share. And so you actually get into a situation where you're balancing the mandate to protect the core along with the mandate to invigorate the new. I actually, feel that you need someone that can actually operate in a nothing to lose mindset. So, going to do whatever it takes, going to go left, go right, go up, go down, just to really kind of shake up things and be disruptive and try and find new markets. And especially, I think, in the life insurance and retirement space where it's all very crowded. I describe it often as a knife fight in a closed-in alley with, 11 gangs in New York City. Everybody's, and I'm sure Terry can validate this, everybody's, kind of fighting for the same market share, shelf space, whatever, however you want to describe it. And it's not growing. And I think that what we need to do is to incorporate some of the ideas that you've expressed, that the OSG has expressed, that can actually lead to growth in demand. And you need a champion for that. You need a champion for that. That can be a legacy leader who's, kind of has really kind of been converted to the new religion, or it can be someone new from outside. But there has to be a balance of respect for the old and protection of the core, and really a mandate to grow the new.
Okay, thank you. So Terry, at the end of the day, when we talk growth, right? Growth really is sales and increasing sales at unusual clips, right? Above than ordinary trend is what growth and exponential growth is about. So if growth equals sales, where do you see customer experience management playing in within the sales organization? How can customer experience management help grow sales?
Yeah. So this is fair, it seems like it's an obvious concept, but it's not really something that we have spent, I guess, a lot of energy around at AIG really until I would say maybe last year, even the year before last. We put more emphasis around customer centricity and journey mapping, et cetera, and becoming more of a customer-led organization. And so we put a program in place this year called Creating Customer Champions. So it's called Customer Champions. And it's to engage folks that are, part of operations or anywhere on the journey map that a client would touch or the policy would touch to get to the end client. And it's been quite successful, actually, because the premise of that is to create a mindset for running our business around customer centricity, meeting the customer needs, solving customer problems, create value for customers. And we, just some of the measurements or the premise of that and the philosophy behind it is that our customer satisfaction can never exceed our employee satisfaction. So if our employees aren't satisfied, and that's one of the metrics actually that we look at is employee satisfaction. If they're not satisfied, engaged, action-oriented, accountable, and committed, then how is that going to translate to our customers? So as I said, that's been a focus for us for this Customer Champions program. And so in terms of how sales can help out in this is distribution has a unique opportunity to spread the customer message every day by sharing stories that we hear in the field. And not everybody, and I haven't done it quite frankly, but the challenge was made to a number of us is, have you ever delivered a check to a survivor of someone that was deceased? And that's life-altering when you see the gratitude that check can have to make a difference in someone's life when they've lost a loved one, and if it weren't for that life insurance policy, they may not be able to put their children through college, et cetera. So those are the types of stories that people that are in the home office don't get to see and care every day, but if we can message that to them and they feel and know that they're part of the solution, that helps with engagement and helps with the overall commitment from the employee. So sales has to tell the customer story, the good and the bad, and communicate that effectively to the home office.
Thank you. Thank you for that example, Terry. So I think what I would like to end with is maybe where we started. At the end of the day, it comes down to measurements and results. So customer experience management is the right thing to do, but the more measurable it is, and the more we are able to connect it to operating returns, right? The greater the attention and the greater the resources that would get put into customer experience management. So I'm just going to go around with my panelists here, and maybe SV, I'll start with you here. What do you think are the payoffs that leaders can realize both in the near term as well as in the long term from engaging in serious customer experience management and becoming a customer-focused organization?
I think, see, the benefits are very obvious because, like I said, today, more and more, we are in an undifferentiated type of situation. Products are more or less the same. You know, the distribution is more or less the same. So really, how do you gain competitive advantage? So that's really where everything comes in terms of good customer experience, leads to obviously customer satisfaction. And then, you know, it fosters repeat customers and loyalty. And we know all the, you know, the metrics that go around spending, you know, having repeat customers. We know that, you know, how advantageous it is. Of course, increases advocacy and referrals, reduces churn, and then, you know, increase revenue and sales, which is a direct effect of, you know, all of these things. So if you just take, for example, I'll give you 2 or 3 examples and then I'll leave it to rest. You know, there is a Wharton study which sort of says that referral customers have 16% higher lifetime value vis-a-vis non-referral customers. Yeah, and the revenue and sales increase from ease of doing business, which is what I talked about, transparency, convenience, and all, and which essentially means better customer experience. Then 70% of the customers are willing to spend more money, which with a company which provides better customer service and better customer experience. So, you know, these are few things which are there, you know, which is clearly reflective in terms of the benefits that the companies can get by managing their customer experience better.
Great. I mean, I think you stated it so eloquently when you basically said differentiation through product and distribution is tried and tested, and people are looking for new ways. Customer experience management gives you a competitive advantage, and especially given today that people have a different set of expectations through digital interactions, whether your business is digital or not, right? Customer experience management becomes even more important because people are living in a digital world where they're dealing with Amazon, they're dealing with, you know, companies like Zappos and a whole host of other digital players, which have made customer experience management central to their business model. So thank you for that. Frank, do you wanna talk really quickly about, from your vantage point, where do you see the payoffs are for being customer focused?
I'm going to be the hippie of the bunch. I'm going to say that, you know, I think it's at least in the state we're in the financial services business, the life insurance or the insurance and retirement business, that we need to focus on really kind of very basic metrics. And so you and I have talked, Shuprio, about, you know, from 5 policies a year to 6 policies a year, or, you know, 10% of a workforce or an agency force selling life insurance to 15%. And I think that those are very concrete metrics that can be held up as goals. I know that when I was in my most recent post, what we focused on was just annualized premium. And we went from, let's say, 7 to 16 in the course of 5 years, but it was a rallying point. And I think that there can be, very simple metrics that can be a rallying point around, okay, how do we drive that metric and how you can incorporate some of the science that you espouse. And I actually think that, to the point of who's in charge, well, everybody's in charge. And if you have something very simple, then the whole organization can be really kind of rallied around and engaged in the goal.
That's sage advice. Simplicity is key. So if you key in on some simple metrics and then figure out how customer experience can improve those metrics, then you can have a rallying cry, and you can rally the organization around the realization of those, and realization and improvement of those metrics. Excellent, thank you. Terry, exactly. from your point of view, what payoffs do you see from being more customer focused and customer centric?
Yeah, it was said earlier that the business it's fairly commoditized. The insurance and their financial services business, most of the products are not that much different from the other person's product. So I think if being customer focused can be a differentiator, because most services average to maybe not even that. And if you can excel and be a more customer focused, delivering the way you deliver products, how you deliver products is a way to be able to differentiate yourself. And if you think about it, just even in the airline industry, if you go back, I live in Houston, so before the Continental United merger, Continental was a wonderful airline. Gordon Bethune was running it, as some of you probably recall or may know, and he incentivized the flight attendant, or not the flight attendants, but the airline staff, that the extra bonus if you bags come out on time so many times, extra bonus if the flights arrive on time, extra bonus if people would be entered into a raffle for a car if they didn't have sick days for six months, if they showed up for work every day. Because when you don't show up for work every day, they've got to pay overtime to people, and it becomes more expensive to do that. And so it was a wonderful fight, and all those incentive programs really made the employees of the airlines focused on the customer. And I flew in that day, and it was a wonderful experience. And you can imagine the experience now is not, I wouldn't call flying on United a wonderful experience. So I do believe that whether it's an airline, it's an insurance company, an asset management firm, whatever, if you really do focus on what's important to the client and important to the customer, you really still can differentiate in a commoditized world with products.
Thank you. I mean, I think the last two comments tie very well with what Effie was saying about, we can absolutely focus on customer experience management as being a critical, toolkit, critical sort of, arm, if you will, in the toolkit for competitive advantage. And the way to go about doing that, Frank, you pointed out simple metrics, and Terry, the right incentives to be able to rally your troops and get them motivated to drive towards those simple metrics and gain that competitive advantage. So excellent. I think this connects all very well together. Sukumar, I want to turn it back to you to basically give your thoughts on payoffs, because as a company we've done hundreds of engagements for nearly a decade now, working with many clients across their entire journey, right? Whether they're very advanced or they're just starting out. So what advice would you give to industry peers and leaders by way of which they can begin to realize payoff through their customer experience management programs?
Well, thank you, Shipriya. That's a great question. And I think you already heard some great comments from Rangan to Frank, and then most recently with Terry. So I like Frank's comments about simplicity. I like Terry's whole idea that you need to know your customers better, and you need to understand what really matters to them and how you're going to address them. And certainly Rangan's points about existing customers and satisfaction is very critical. I want to separate our payoffs into a journey, because the payoff comes at the end of that journey, and the payoff can be as simple as, can we go from 6 policies to 7 policies? That would be an outcome. But along that journey, leaders in organizations like Terry and Frank and Rangan are always asking for, how do I know that I'm doing the right thing? How do I know that I'm going to get to that payoff that you mapped out? And so to do that, I think we need to understand some other things, like some basic things like, is our brand being preferred over that of the competition? Do people see what matters to them being addressed? And there's a green light on it, simple red, red, yellow, green. How do we perform versus the competition? Then it goes to the next level of thinking along the lines of customer satisfaction. Will they remind us? Will they remember us when they have to renew? What do we have to do to remind them? What would they have to do to make sure that they're saying the right things about us to other people? So there are those intermediary payoffs that are about understanding and knowing that you're measuring the right measure, you're capturing the right trends around trust, around satisfaction, around likelihood to come back to you on the contract, or the likelihood to recommend you to others. All of these are critical to managers and leaders to understand that A, they're doing the right thing, they're addressing what matters to customers, and little things matter. Let's not forget that. I loved Terry's Gordon Bethune example. I flew Continental and was probably one of the largest flyers at that time on Continental, and I got to say to you that the guy at the door knew me by my name, both at Houston as well as Phoenix. That used to be a trip I used to make 3 times a week, and they knew me by my name, and that made a big difference for me when I walked up to the gate. So little things matter, everything matters. We need to understand, and then most critically, as you pointed out, different strokes for different folks. If we can personalize that with the digital world that we live in and use the powerful analytics that we have, the payoffs can be huge, but you have to start with a journey of success. So let me turn that with that comment back to you, Supriya, with the idea that OSG has several tools here that can actually help you go through this large change management exercise.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sukumar. I really want to thank all our panelists here. I know we're past time, so I'm going to hand it over to Geeta here.
Yes, thank you, Supriya. Thank you, team. That was a wonderful discussion. We'll send you a copy of the recording, and we'll post it on our website shortly. We thank all of you for attending, and we wish you a very good rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you.